This show is supported by Twin Cities Eye Consultants. No matter your seat at the match, Twin Cities Eye Consultants will make sure you can see your favorite players. Book your next eye exam 24/7 at tcecmn.com. Welcome in, Loons fans, to another edition of the Matchday Preview presented by Twin Cities Eye Consultants. Jonathan Harrison here, joined once again by Manny Lagos. Manny, just you and I today, plenty to break down. We've waited a day since the unfortunate loss by the U.S. men's national team, which we'll break it all down. We'll talk about all the fallout, where to go from here, talk about the World Cup as well. The round of 16 is now wrapped up, heading into the quarterfinal stages. Manny, how are you doing on this Wednesday morning as we chat?
Well, let's go with the positives. I'm recording from Allianz Field today. Obviously, the team is getting back close to getting back up and running, which is super exciting. And we've got a closed door game today, which is really exciting. And at the end of the day, it's taken a while. I'm doing a lot of postmortem media stuff yesterday, some more today. I'd be lying if I'm still not trying to recover from it all. If I'm trying to equate it to our Loons fans and family, it kind of felt like after that Vancouver game, for me, just one of those days where you hadn't seen a lot in the past, especially recently, and I don't think we'll see a performance like that in the future.
No, that hopefully we don't see anything that rough in the future. We'll get to that. I don't want to start off completely going down the negative rabbit hole, which I know it will certainly feel that way when talking about the U.S. men's national team for obvious reasons. After their 4-1 loss to Belgium, knocks them out of the World Cup in the round of 16 a little bit earlier than I think some of us had anticipated. We'll discuss all that. Got plenty of World Cup to discuss. You mentioned Loons getting back in action, closed door scrimmage against the Fire last week. They've got one today against Real Salt Lake. They'll have, I believe, Colorado coming up in Colorado.
Week from today. In Colorado, yeah.
In Colorado, and then back at it, game action on the 22nd. So MLS, I mean, we've already got MLS teams back in action, the Canadian teams anyways, in the Canadian Championship kicking off tonight, or a couple games tonight. And then league action gets started next Thursday as well. So MLS almost back in action after a 2-month break.
Amazing.
Manny, where do we sit with the Loons? I know we'll dive deeper into where the Loons stand after this summer break for the World Cup. But what did you see from, as much as you can give away, from that closed door scrimmage? And what do you expect for the Loons for the rest of the summer here?
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive reset for the club in terms of having this unique kind of break where the guys got 3 weeks off, and then you almost have this mini preseason camp. Certainly, it's a massive reset for every team, by the way, in the league. So there's no doubt to think that we're the only ones that are working hard preparing. But I'm just seeing a lot of trying to take the positives of what happened in the first season, as well as work on the areas where I think we fell a little bit short, particularly, getting 2 points out of 9 against teams that I think we probably, on the data analytics side, should have at least gotten probably 5 or 6 points. But overall, very positive. I think the coaching staff, the players, the commitment to getting better, looked really evident against the Fire. I thought there was some really good work, particularly in the back 3/5, in terms of just getting them coordinated. Center midfielders, all were putting in good shifts and had good moments. And then up top, we, are trying some new things. So it's kind of exciting to see where the coaches are going with some ideas about how they want to go about breaking teams down in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what the coaching staff and the players can do with the full, I guess, as we're calling it now, full training camp ahead of this second part of the season. Whereas at the beginning of the season, before the season started, the coaching staff still had to be filled out. We were still waiting for some
100%.
incoming coaching staff. So now that you've got that full coaching staff behind Cameron Knowles, obviously some changes at the goalkeeping department, which we can talk about maybe in a future show as well. But it'll be interesting to see how that helps kind of kickstart this team going into the second half of the season. All right, let's talk about the World Cup. We'll get to the U.S. men's national team in a second, but let's catch up from the last time you and I had a conversation about this on the air. Round of 32, round of 16 now wrapped up. What was the biggest surprise? Who's been the biggest surprise for you? I guess I'll start there. Biggest surprise from you, whether from a good angle or from a bad angle.
I mean, it's just been such an amazing World Cup, isn't it? Like, you and I were like, oh, here comes the World Cup. We'll see what happens. And then we were just blown away with on the field, off the field, the celebration of soccer, the celebration of cultures, the games themselves have shown that, probably moving to 48 was not a bad idea in terms of like, the rest of the world, a lot of countries are getting really good at competing at a high level. So I've been just amazed by that. And then obviously you're going into that Cape Verde game thinking that is just pinnacle, just pinnacle in terms of, an underdog giving everything they had to try to upset a giant of the game. And then you had that England-Mexico game, which I would still argue was my favorite game of the tournament. I think some people might now take the Argentina comeback as their favorite game, and fair enough. I just have a little bit more context. I've been to Azteca a lot of times, as early as 10 years old, watching the U20 World Cup, 120,000 people, Mexico, Australia as a kid. So I think that game really resonated with me. It showed a lot of heart and guts by Mexico, and it showed a lot of just digging by England to fight and I'll respect Mexico's, what they were doing in that game, but manage it in the second half the way they did to get the win bodes well for them, I think, as this tournament goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the thing that's stood out to me the most is that this expansion to 48 teams has gone off a lot better than I had anticipated. I figured that, with more teams, the group stage might be kind of meaningless, and you get the early rounds that were kind of just easygoing for some of the bigger teams in the world. But then some of these teams that you didn't expect to show out, like you said, Cape Verde showing out as well as they did. I think that's a really good testament to this expansion to 48 teams. FIFA got this one right. I mean, we can talk about a lot of their decisions that they've made throughout this tournament that really haven't gone right, but this one, they certainly nailed the expansion, and it really does speak to how well a lot of countries that you don't expect, or that maybe a lot of people didn't expect to play as well as they did, are playing extremely well and able to compete with some of the quote unquote top teams in the world. It's been really fun to see some of these stars rise up and from places that you didn't expect. And that's been really cool to see. I think for me, as you said, Cape Verde, obviously the team of the tournament with their story, and you got to see their welcome back home after they were eliminated by Argentina. That was an incredible welcome back from their fans and their countrymen.
Did you see that mural for the goalie?
Yeah,
as well?
Awesome.
Amazing. Yeah.
I love the goalkeeper story. His story is one of my favorite stories, and how he started with 50,000 Instagram followers and then ended the tournament with over 17 million. That's just, it's so cool to see the world get behind some of these guys. And I think for me, despite the way the US went out, seeing this country get behind this team as much as they did, and you see these television numbers that they're having, that Fox and Telemundo had for this game. What was it, 45 million combined? That's more than NFL wildcard weekend, Manny. Those are massive television numbers. I know the performance on the field stunk it up, but that's a testament to the growth of the sport in this country. Obviously, the performance will kind of hinder that a little bit. I think that's fair to say, but there was a lot of people that will still stay on board with soccer after what they've seen from this tournament, what they're probably going to see from the rest of this tournament.
Yeah, well said. I can't add anything to that. It's completely true.
Yeah, it's been really fun to see. You talk about that Mexico-England game. That was one of the most emotional games. If I can speak this early.
It was a bowl as well, yeah.
Emotional games that I've ever seen. The atmosphere was one of the best atmospheres in all of sports that I've ever been able to witness coming through a television. That was an incredible game. Obviously, some questions about how Mexico managed the game after going up a man, but England really putting in a shift, really putting in an incredible performance in a difficult environment to come out with the win, 3-2, or what was that, 3-2, 4-2 win? I can't even remember at this point, but
3-2.
just 3-2 win.
Yeah.
Incredible game. One of the best games that I've seen. As you said, Argentina, Egypt will certainly have its sayers for best game of the tournament, best game in World Cup history. But I think there's some questions about some officiating there that maybe knock it down a peg for me. Behind Mexico
I would like
and
to hear these questions because I'm not so sure. Sure.
Okay, well, I guess let's jump into that one then.
Yeah, sure.
Argentina and Egypt yesterday, the massive comeback in the second half, in the last 15 minutes of that match by Argentina. I think it should have been maybe 3 goals for Egypt because that goal that was called back, that incredible run. I get there was a foul at the beginning of the play, but that's like 40 seconds back. That's 75% of the field back. I don't know that that's even the same phase of play at that point. I don't know that foul.
Well, it is. I mean, that's the problem, Jonathan. It is or it isn't. At the end of the day, you either saying you're going to let VAR get better and be a part of the game, or you're not. And I still think, controversially, I don't love that the VAR's kind of overlord feeling for all this. But at the end of the day, it's trying to make the game better. It's trying to make the integrity of the calls better. I think overall, when I look at the scope of the growth of it in our league and in the world, I mean, I'm kind of an 8-track to CD, tapes to CDs to now streaming, and I think the game is still better for some crazy missed calls pre-VAR that I like it. So when I go back to that exact play, the rules are the next phase of offense, which was, yes, it was over 100 yards, 110 yards of action, but that foul led to an advantage for a team that scored. And it's written in the rules. I don't know how else. I think, ironically, everybody's upset because VAR actually got both of the calls right in that game. They got that one right, and then they got the fact that Mo Salah 100%, that was a good tackle. They won the ball, and they countered and scored on their 80-yard kind of trajectory forward. So, ironically, for me this morning, I'm a little bit torn because they were up 2-0 in the 78th minute, and they lost 3-2. That would have made it 2-0 anyways, too. So I cannot blame VAR for that game personally. Like, I just can't. I mean, if you don't like the call or the rule, I mean, there's a lot of sports rules I don't like. And I mentioned that, but they got the referees and VAR got that call right.
Yeah.
It was, unless you don't think it was a foul, then that's a fair debate too, because maybe it was a soft foul, but it looked to me like he stepped on him and he went down, and that helped them counter and create the goal. So
I guess from my standpoint is that there's enough space and time on that field and that play between when the foul happened and when the goal went in the back of the net for Argentina to respond. That I don't know.
What is it? Is it 60 yards? I mean, is it a distance thing?
I guess, I guess that's fair.
I need to know what they need to write in the rules for you to now be happy with this call. Because at the end of the day,
that's fair.
In the rules, we have these attacking phases that happen when another team loses the ball. That next phase happens until the ball's dead or, the ball starts going backwards. So I need to know where it falls in the rule book, because that was the phase. It led to a crazy counter that led to the goal.
Yeah, and that's totally fair as well. It's just, I don't know, for me, and I don't want to when we're writing these rules, you don't need to get super specific. Maybe
I think you do, though. Like I said, I do think you do. That's why I'm pushing back a little bit. Like, you want it to be in the offensive half. Maybe that should be the rule. Maybe it's not in the defensive half. Maybe it's only in the offensive half. Like I said, but I don't think you can change the rules in tournament like that.
No, you shouldn't.
Unless you're the USA, but yeah.
That is a discussion that we'll certainly have to have with the U.S. men's national team. I think the debate is fair about that game. I mean, about that call and the calls in that match. But obviously that game came down to Argentina and Lionel Messi and his teammates coming up with an incredible performance, and Egypt just kind of squandering away a 2-0 win. But I mean, when you have a team that's the defending champions of the world, you have the greatest player of all time coming up with a huge goal that he came up with in that moment, which, I mean, you look at the power that Messi got on that strike, from very little movement of his leg. That's incredible to see the ball go in the back of the net, just flying as fast as it can. When you look at the technique and the little movement he had to get his foot to that ball, that was some incredible technique, a great goal at that moment, obviously, but what an incredible comeback performance from Argentina there in a moment when they needed a handful of goals just to get back into it with not a lot of time left on the clock.
Yeah, I really, like I said, I'll finish the conspiracy stuff and go. Just let's not forget that Egypt-Iran game where Egypt got some amazing calls. So I just don't buy the conspiracy that this was all for Argentina, when Egypt was really a crazy but probably right call against Iran that allowed them to kind of continue their World Cup journey and allowed them to kind of have the pathway they had. So, excuse me, in terms of Messi, it just keeps on getting more amazing because this one had some human element of that he's human by missing the PK, by chances within the game not happening for him. And you thought, this is it. You know, it's done. He can't will this team. And the next thing you know, both he and that country are the best street fighters in soccer. They just are. They just don't give up. They just keep fighting. That entire World Cup in 2022, you saw it. We keep on thinking, well, maybe they don't have it this tournament. They certainly do up to this point. And Messi certainly is the greatest player of all time for a lot of reasons. And he just added to the folklore of, I'm going to make some mistakes, but I'll figure out a way to make up for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about some of the host nations. We talked about Mexico going out to England. They went out absolutely fighting and scrapping in that game against England. Canada overpowered by Morocco. What did you think of their two tournaments? Kind of different in how they went about it. Mexico, they beat up on some teams that they should definitely beat up on, and they got to the round of 16 hosted against England in one of the best atmospheres we've seen. Canada, they struggled throughout the group stage. They got to the round of 16, but they were on U.S. soil. They didn't get a stay at home because they didn't win their group. What do you think about Mexico and Canada and their World Cups this time around?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting because we're going to have to talk about how the U.S. went out. I would say, if I'm being honest, I think Canada and Mexico especially had a better feeling going out based on just that first half for Canada was 45 minutes of hope, 45 minutes of kind of showing some real quality, and probably should have had a lead 1 or 2-0. I think Canada will move on from this World Cup really excited about where they're going as a country, based on that they never had won a game before, they'd never gotten out of group, they'd never won a knockout stage. So there's a lot of firsts for them that I think they will leave the World Cup excited for the next World Cup. I think Mexico, certainly has a history of heartbreak. And so theirs is going to be a little bit more kind of convoluted in that, like, I think they played some of the best soccer consistently in the entire tournament and didn't really have a bad game. Just had a really unfortunate result where they were the better team in the day, but soccer doesn't always give the fairness of being the better team on the field the result, because they played against a great England team that really showed some amazing character. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they kind of look at what they need to do to get better and become a team that wins those games now. The reality is, in knockouts phases of the World Cups, Mexico tends to kind of come up against superpowers and they tend to lose, and they did once again. So they still have to kind of think about, how do we get to that upper echelon? But I think there'll be a little bit more pride in them just going into the tournament. Out of the three teams, I think on paper it looked like the U.S. and Canada were the better teams overall. And Mexico, I think, leaves the World Cup saying we still might be the strength of the region.
International soccer fans, embrace your Loons and your favorite national team with the Club and Country Ticket Pack. Score a ticket to any MNUFC home game from July through September, plus your choice of 14 country scarves starting from just $39. Learn more at mnufc.com/tickets. Yeah, I think those are all fair points, and I can't really argue against many of them. I think the way the U.S. played in the group stage and was really fun to see that development and how they went through. In Canada, for me, they struggled throughout that group stage. They didn't really put on their best performance. I know they had injuries, some bigger injuries in the tournament and before the tournament that really hindered how things went for them. Mexico, sure, they had some really good results. They didn't allow a goal until that England game. I wasn't terribly impressed with them, but that may just be my U.S. men's national team bias coming through and wanting the U.S. to stay on top of this region. But let's talk about the U.S. men's national team. 4-1 loss to Belgium. Manny, for me, this was one of the most disappointing performances I've ever seen from the U.S. And let's just get the negatives out of the way right away. That was a really difficult game, considering the moment, considering what had gone on throughout the week, throughout the buildup of this tournament. It was a really difficult performance and one of the most disappointing I've seen in a long time from this squad.
Yeah, I think we picked one of the worst times to have our worst game in a long time. Yeah. Given how well we played in the tournament, how well these guys connected collectively, individually, managed problems on the field in the moment. Had a coaching staff that tactically had a great setup, had a really good game plan, and really overwhelmed teams. And there was no doubt it's even harder because we were the favorites going into this game, slightly, not like overwhelmingly, yeah. but the favorites against, kind of one of the traditionally bigger powers in Europe. And we just didn't show up on the day. Ultimately, the amazing thing about soccer in this 90-minute game, if you don't get off to a good start, it can really hit your psychologically, your confidence, both individually and collectively. Mm-hmm. And we had the perfect storm of all of that hitting all at once. Most of the individuals on the field had their worst games in a long time, and collectively we had the worst games of all time. And then you have to give credit to Belgium. I mean, they put together such a great game plan, and particularly the coaching staff, deciding to go against their kind of older players, Doku and De Bruyne especially being the older player, and going with young athletic guys that decided that instead of sitting deep like they've been doing most of the games in the tournament, they were going to press and close all over the field. And those first 5 to 7 passes in a soccer game are so important for the team and for you individually to get you going. And unfortunately, we didn't get going. It was after 10 minutes, it was 6 shots to 0. So we knew that right away it was going to be a long day. And we just didn't have any answers, which makes it even feel worse. You just wake up thinking like we were going to figure it out after we scored, and then we got scored on right away. And then at halftime, only down 1, it's an opportunity for the coaching staff to make some adjustments and changes that could help change the tone of it. And it just didn't have it, and it's hard because, like you said, there's a lot of mainstream audience watching that game for the first time. And that was not representative, I think, of the U.S. national team or even where we are as a country in terms of competing against globally big countries, soccer countries.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely fair. That game definitely didn't represent how good this team showed they can play. I mean, you can say what you want about the competition that they had before this game against Belgium, but they still played some of the most entertaining soccer that we've seen from this team in a long time. It was really fun to see how they gelled on the field and how they really took it to teams. And you mentioned the start of the game, too sloppy for me. There was just inability to connect passes, and then every set piece, Manny, for me, it felt like Belgium had 1 or 2 free runners every single time. And it seemed like in the middle of the match, there was no fixes for it. The team just couldn't find a way to get to pull together some answers to the questions that Belgium were asking. And they really struggled to connect passes, to get the ball out of their own half, to get, attacking movements going. Because as you mentioned, Belgium swarming them all over the field, pressing them everywhere, and really disrupting, winning a large majority of 50-50s. And that's always going to make it super difficult brutal for you to
the 50-50s and the second balls was just insane. And that was another one, Belgium really tactically really well done, that they went direct and then really committed to numbers to winning those second balls, hit us really hard. Just the amount of extra running we had to do to get back in our defensive shape throughout, particularly that first half, was just overwhelming in a way that I hadn't seen a U.S. team kind of get that. We have to win 50-50 battles. We have to win second balls if we're going to compete against some of these better teams in the world.
Yeah, and you talk about the strong starts, or the strong start that Belgium had. That's been basically the trait of this U.S. team during this tournament, was the strong starts, getting on the front foot early, taking it to teams, putting them behind early. And the U.S. had that done to them, and they just couldn't find an answer in the game on Monday night, in a massive atmosphere. You saw the pregame scenes in Seattle. Felt like a college game day atmosphere there at the Fox set. It was awesome to see all those fans, but the game on the field just did not play out the way many expected. So what's the fallout here? What's next? What's the next step for the U.S.? Obviously, the biggest question is who's going to be the head coach going forward. We know Pochettino's contract is up after this. Do you stick with them after what you saw at the World Cup, or do you move on? Do you go to a next phase for the head coaching staff or the coaching staff and give someone a full run up through to the next World Cup, which we haven't done in a very long time in this country?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I guess I would start with, do you believe that he wants to be here? I think the first question is probably, where is his head at in terms of this project, in terms of his goals as, kind of somebody who's traditionally been a club coach? Did he enjoy this experience? Does he believe in it? Does he want to keep it going? Obviously, if the answer is no, it's very easy. We need somebody who's ready and hungry to kind of work on the next 4 years for building up and building. When you start looking at the young list of players contributing, particularly in MLS, but all over the world right now, you'll start to get excited about 4 years from now, because there's a lot of good young players that are up and coming. I certainly do believe that if the answer is yes, then we have to really make sure we're working on, well, what is the plan with you, not just with the first team day in and day out, but these younger players. I look at the kind of strategy Morocco's put in place over the last 10 years to make sure at every age group they're starting to compete globally, to allow them now to kind of have these young stars contributing massively to their run now in this World Cup. So for me, if the answer is yes, that he wants to stay, I think it has to be a really tough discussion about what does that mean and how will it work, not just within the first team, but the entire kind of pyramid of U.S. soccer.
Yeah, I think for me, as good as this run was and as fun as this run was to see it develop, I think I move on, and I think I look for a head coach that is going to be here for all 4 years. I mean, there was the questions even before this tournament, Pochettino talking to AC Milan or other clubs, and fair play to him. He's a coach. That's the next step in his career. I want a coach that's going to be fully committed. I'm not saying he wasn't fully committed, but there was still those questions.
No, he was fully committed to. He was he was a mercenary, and maybe he won't be, but I think he is. I think kind of. I think we're kind of saying the same thing, that I'm giving you the only way he would stay is if he shifts that mentality to commitment, and I personally don't see it, but I'd be intrigued if he came back and said, no, I'm really enjoying this project.
I also just want to get a new head coach in as quick as we can and give them the full cycle, which we haven't done since maybe Bruce before the 2002 World Cup. And
I don't like as quick as we can, though. I think that's a little bit. I mean, I think you've got to
find someone and give them a full cycle instead of
chopping and changing. But I think you've got at least a year to make sure I think you get somebody that's not just focused on the first team, but focused on all of these kids that are really contributing globally now, that have to be a part of this process. And it has to be more than just right now the current kind of 26 guys are on the World Cup roster.
Is that someone for you? Say it's not Pochettino who's coming back. Say it's a new head coach. Is that someone for you that's already in the U.S. system, in MLS, in the U.S. head coach, or in the U.S. coaching staff at one of the levels? Someone who's been in the system before? Or is that a complete outside hire?
No, I think that's a big question, U.S. soccer. And we have people there now. We have this beautiful facility in Atlanta. We've got them to get in a meeting room and roll up their sleeves and ask that harder question. I certainly think right away there's only a couple guys I think that would fit the bill if it is a domestic coach. I don't know if today's the right day to talk about those names, but they're in my head already for sure. If it's not, then I think you really have to do an even more thorough interview process, which is why I said I don't like the answer of quick. I like the answer of urgency in terms of this next year is a really good year to get that hire right. But I don't want it to be a 2 to 3 week process. I would rather it be like a year-long process.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I don't think I was thinking 2 to 3 weeks for quick. I didn't want it to play out as long as we let the last coaching decision after Qatar play out. That was
Sure.
a really
That was way
weird.
more drama, though. There was a lot going on there.
For sure. Yeah. Hopefully that's not the case this
Hopefully
time.
we don't have lawsuits involved in this one. So, yeah.
That would be key. Overall, what did you think of how Poch handled this tournament?
I give him a pretty good grade overall. I think his goal of creating a culture and creating a group that was going to come in and kind of galvanize the country and galvanize the belief in U.S. soccer, I think he really did achieve that. And I really hope all of our fans and new fans embrace that. The sum of this tournament was not just the Belgium game; it was what we showed the world we could do in all the games. So I certainly think he did a great job, and I certainly will, have little moments of criticize about the last game. I don't think I would have changed anything in the setup of the team. I think his in-game tactical management had to make some big decisions. I don't think the halftime changes were enough or right. I don't think given a guy minutes that I don't think had been really contributing in a positive way in terms of the overall group for the last 12 months was the right move to try to get us out. It felt like a Hail Mary and kind of more desperation, as opposed to like thinking about what Belgium was doing well, what we were needed to do, and how we'd fix that. My brain goes back to still how that second game without Pulisic, he went to a 5-3-2 and it was very successful against Australia. I would have probably liked the in-game management been more about that type of thinking as opposed to kind of just like, let me see if some guys can kind of help this click. So I don't think he particularly had a good game against Belgium. And even if we'd lost, I think we should have been battling till the end in that game, and it should have been a tight game in terms of the fact that it was only 2-1 at halftime. So I think he has to take some criticism within that game. But I think overall, I think he brought back a reality that we are only going to be as good because of our whole, not because of our individuals. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a really important piece of this journey for us, because we keep on talking about development and we do need more higher level players. We need some global superstars eventually to really get us over the top. I do believe that. But he also said in the meantime, that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that nobody is bigger than the team. And I think that he not only said that, he had to fight through his own principles and values over the last 12 months to get us to a place where we are now. So I'm really happy that he was coach. I think those are invaluable lessons that we will take as we go on this journey to get better in the future.
Yeah, I agree on that. I mean, Pochettino, we talked about how this wasn't the smoothest run up for him, but you can see afterwards, looking back, hindsight being 2020, the strategies that he was trying to employ and how he was trying to go about getting this team and a lot of these players to realize that you're not bigger than this club. This team is the biggest thing, not individual players. And I definitely agree with you there that he really kind of worked on shifting that mindset, and it really seemed to pay off in this tournament. When you look at the players, speaking of the individual players, who stood out the most to you? I think I'll start off. I'll take an easy one here. Alex Freeman absolutely stood out to me as one of the most impressive players, had one of the most impressive tournaments in the squad. And he really kind of did a really good job of giving himself a boost to becoming one of the better right center backs or wing backs or however you want to play him in maybe Europe and maybe the world. I mean, he was outstanding in this tournament and was really fun to see his development kind of in this tournament, but also when you look back, his development as a whole over the past year and a half, 2 years.
I love it. I think you're right. I mean, obviously young, athletic, showed his athleticism in the games. Sneakily has this amazing ability to break lines with dribbling in a way that he almost can get by every player, because he kind of does this outside-inside move where the guy knows it's coming, but then he just explodes by him. And then he has the composure to keep the next pass going and to allow us to have an attacking phase of offense, which I think is amazing and so important in soccer that you have that ability. So I think he is, without a doubt, somebody that even the Belgian game, I thought he was one of the better players on a day where I barely have anybody above average. Yeah. I think he stood out a little bit. I would probably add Berhalter to that list too, in terms of coming out in the second half and really showing some quality and some grit and some just technical savviness that allowed us at least to stay in the game a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, I know there's a lot of drama around this name, and we'll talk about that next. But Balogun really impressed at that number 9 spot in his ability to play with his back to the net and his ability to do the hold up, do the really rough stuff as a striker, and be able to just manhandle and be physical against defenders and really cause those guys problems. He was really fun in that role, and I thought he impressed me in that role. And I'm sure wherever he goes next after Monaco, because it seems, according to all the reporting before and during the tournament, that he's going to be moving on from here. But he has been his role and how he fulfilled it throughout the tournament was really fun to see. Obviously, he didn't have a great game against Belgium. No one really did. But the games that he did play, he was awesome. And I loved seeing his development as a player and in that role, taking kind of the reins of that number 9 spot.
Yeah, I thought 100%, particularly his movement. You know, people will talk about his goals. Goals were great. Yes, he was our leading scorer, but I thought his movement was outstanding. You know, I thought, like you said, I thought he really pushed the back line of teams back. He really ran some nice runs that got the ball in good channels for us to get numbers forward and load the line. Great work rate, some great techniques, some great goals. Overall, an exciting tournament for him. And like you said, the cool thing about the World Cup is this can sometimes lead to a new journey that he can go to another level as well. So I certainly don't think he's on par of going trajectory towards like superstar globally.
Yeah.
I think he's a star, and I think that's exciting for us because I think we need more stars on the roster in the future.
As proud partners of Minnesota United FC, we're excited to share that the National Loon Center is opening in 2027. Located in the heart of Loon Country, the center will celebrate Minnesota's iconic state bird through immersive exhibits and lakeside experiences. Learn more and follow our journey at nationalloonscenter.org. Yeah, I think I feel bad for him because he had the drama and the ridiculousness of the 36 hours before the game. And obviously that clearly impacted how he played in that match, clearly impacted how the US played in the match. And through no fault of his own, he didn't clearly want that. I mean, he wanted to play, but he didn't he didn't bring upon the distraction that was the decision by FIFA and the talking heads and the politicians getting involved. And I think that clearly had an impact on him. I don't know, maybe, and the team overall, just the utter distraction that it was. Obviously, UEFA making their statements, Belgium making their statements, that clearly gave them a little bit of added motivation. I just, as much as I liked that it allowed Balogun to play, I would have rather not had him play, not have those distractions if that was an option, because it clearly impacted the team for me.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan, I'm a coach in deep down, so my brain has trouble going to making excuses when you have to deal with adversity. I just do. Yeah. Like I said, at the end of the day, there would have been more adversity when you had to play Spain, more adversity if you get up by that game. And I would say the biggest disappointment, we didn't deal with the adversity individually and collectively that well. These guys and pro soccer players are amazing at dealing with adversity, by the way. And by the way, they fail sometimes, but the ones that chase the failure to get back to success are the most successful pro soccer players and sports stars out there. So I'm not going to go there with that. I don't think it's healthy to make that excuse. I don't think it's true necessarily, because there could have been some other adversity going on that we don't know about, or there could have been something else that would have created adversity. That's what happens in these tournaments. And again, I know I'm going to sound old school tough guy, but I just don't like making excuses 100%. And this one feels like a soft excuse because there's drama and there's pressure. And like I said, I feel for the guys because I do think that they wanted so badly to rise to the occasion. I think probably overdid it individually to make us look like we weren't a good group. And again, when the whole world is watching and has this expectation now that you should be beating a big time European team, makes it even harder. So, yeah, not going to accept it. That's fine. You know, everybody can have their opinions on it. I'm not going to go there. And if you're going to go there, I'm just going to be old school coach and say deal with adversity. Sorry, like that's small. That feels like a small adversity compared to, like, you know, the issues that other teams deal with to try to beat some of these big teams. I don't think Cape Verde, you know, decided not to play because Messi was playing.
Right. Yeah. I'm not saying that it's the only reason they struggled. Obviously, there was a lot of reasons why they struggled.
It's fair.
I can't put aside that
like
it didn't have an impact.
There was some added adversity that you weren't anticipating and trying to figure out why.
And I don't think they
show up on the day.
And as you pointed out, I don't think they really battled through that adversity that well. And I think that was an added thing that kind of went against them in the buildup. And I don't think they played the guys on the field battled through that adversity well on the night.
Yeah.
Overall, throughout the tournament, I know or before the tournament started, when we were on stage at the soccer celebration, you, me, and Fernando Adi, we talked about the expectations for this team going into the tournament. And I think we all three of us said the expectations was quarterfinals, that this team is good enough. They have the talent to get to the quarterfinals. And if they didn't get there, it'd be maybe you want to go this strong, maybe you don't, it'd be a failure. They didn't get there. So where do you stand? It was a really good tournament. It was a really fun tournament, but they didn't live up to expectations. And the way they went out was so rough, I kind of had a lack of words there. It wasn't as good. It wasn't nearly as good as they needed to be. They didn't go out fighting like Mexico or Canada. And it was really a very disappointing way to go out. And that's going to certainly tarnish the way that a lot of outside people look at this team's tournament. Overall, I think it was a fun tournament, but you didn't live up to the expectations. You didn't get to where you at least should have gone in this tournament for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's we have to be honest about where that adversity hit, both collectively and individually, and we can talk about it. Like I said, I think for me, the number one probably issue I think we had I'm gonna throw a compliment. Christian Pulisic is our best player on the roster. Whether it was the injuries of this World Cup, whether it was just, you know, not being sharp enough when he was in there, besides the 45 minutes against Paraguay, that hit us hard. Because when your best player is not playing his best and not giving you that extra bit, when the margins are so thin, it's going to be hard to achieve what our goal was, which is the quarterfinals. So I think I'll start with the fact that, you know, our best player didn't have his best tournament.
Yeah, I think for me, that's definitely fair. I think we got a question on the rundown, who has been the biggest letdown so far? And maybe that's just looking at overall teams in this tournament. But I think for me, the way his tournament kind of played out, Pulisic, that was a big letdown for me, because we went in knowing that, or talking about how this team was going to go, how he went and how he played. And I don't want to put all that pressure on him and all that and kind of relieve the pressure off the team. But you mentioned he's the star of the team. He's one of the best players on this team, if not the best. And you had him for a good 45 minutes against Paraguay, and you didn't really have him for much after that. And you could see the impact for sure in a lot of those games. And I think that's the biggest letdown for me, is that Pulisic, once again, in a big tournament, you saw it in the World Cup in Qatar, just didn't have a good enough tournament, and it wasn't good enough from him. And if he's going to be the star player, there's going to be expectations, and those expectations weren't lived up to him for me.
Yep. Like I said, you know, I would throw back that maybe Balogun not playing would have put that spotlight in more, because I do think it was a legacy game for him. I've said that. I thought it was a big one. Mm-hmm. And you're almost hopeful that can allow him to kind of rise to the occasion. But I don't think it would have mattered, having looked at the game now, whether Balogun was in or not. He just wasn't quite himself after getting that calf injury. And then the combination of the calf injury and that it's really hard to be the best player on a team that needs everybody to be at their best for him to even be his best. So again, it's a little bit of criticism of him. It's a criticism of the team. Mm-hmm. It's the reality that, you know, this team still isn't quite good enough to make a deep run in a World Cup.
Yeah, I think that's all fair.
Hey, by the way, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I don't. I was going to help you.
I was going to move on. So
I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to move on. Let's get excited about the World Cup. So
yeah, quarterfinals. let's
Yeah.
get your
Speaking
predictions.
of before quarterfinals, I do want to kind of put a shout out to the a couple things that I think were really interesting about this World Cup is how well or how many older aging superstars were in this World Cup.
Yeah.
And some of them did really well. And I think some of them, kind of held their teams back. So, Messi is the easy one, killing it. I
Hmm.
think Luka Modric, what a player, what a career. I mean, just
Legend.
to see him walking up that field, just the way he played against Portugal and the influence he had on the team that should have won that game. They were very similar to the Mexico-England game. They were the better team that day, better tactics, better energy, better just all over the field except for the result. But to see that legend finish that way, I kind of love because that's a guy that he just makes everybody better by being so good himself and working so hard and being so good in terms of his tactics, in terms of the quality on the field. On the flip side, I would say there's some superstars that hurt their team's kind of identity. I would say Neymar being added to the roster when he really couldn't contribute. Really, I think threw Brazil for a loop in terms of how they were going to build into their own identity in the tournament.
Yeah.
I would even throw Dzeko in there for Bosnia. I think he is an amazing forward who had a great career and even helped them in qualifying. But I think once the tournament got going, you had a team that really wanted to be aggressive and tough all over the field. And when you don't have the legs to do it, even though he has the body to do it, it hit them hard, I thought, in terms of them really competing in a way that I thought they could have. And then probably the biggest one is Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Ultimately, he is an amazing player. Every day he gets up thinking, I'm sure that he's going to be the best because he is one of the best ever, and he's got all these great qualities. But I just think it held back the best midfield in the tournament, and them having ability with a forward that's going to play the game in a way that modern day forwards need to really work and run. I think it hurt a team for them to really build into being a competitive team to be one of those teams that could get to the quarters or to the semifinals. So amazing World Cup with so many older players and mixed results.
Yeah. I think the way Portugal went out and the way they played throughout the tournament was really kind of my biggest letdown, is because you see the midfield, the options they have in that midfield, and how you think they could play when you pair up the names that they have in that midfield. One of the most talented teams overall, when you just look out on paper, one of the more talented teams in this World Cup, and they're out in the round of 16, and they kind of went out with a whimper. They didn't really put their best foot forward throughout the entire tournament. They had one good game against Uzbekistan. Other than that, there wasn't a whole lot of really good performances. And I think a lot of that comes down to, as you said, Cristiano Ronaldo kind of weighing the team down as with the way he wants to play and the way the other guys on the squad would normally play. And then just the head coach being unwilling to make the decision and make the big call, telling the country's probably one of their biggest stars ever, hey man, like, we play a lot better with you as maybe as super sub than you as the full 60, 75, full 90-minute starter. We need you to kind of take one for the team here and come off the bench here. And you never really saw that from Roberto Martinez. And they had one good game in this tournament against Uzbekistan. Other than that, Portugal failed to impress me. And that's really disappointing because they have a ton of good players on that squad that should be going further in this tournament for sure, and should maybe be playing in the next round of this tournament, and they aren't. So I think they're the biggest letdown for me. When you look at the quarterfinals,
yes,
the match is coming up.
Let's get some back to like some fun
Positivity.
soccer. Yeah.
All right. Let's make some predictions. Let's go down the line here. France, Morocco. France have been one of the most exciting teams. I don't think, though, for me, they've really ever gotten out of third gear. They haven't really needed to, with the way they've really handled a lot of their opponents so far. But you're going up against a Morocco side that have really impressed in this tournament, continue to impress. Talked about the way they've kind of built up their system throughout the last decade, 2 decades, and they're really kind of reaping the benefits of building up that youth and seeing those guys develop into world-class stars. So that should be one of the more exciting matches. France, Morocco. Who you got in that one?
Well, I'd first say I think this is the game of the quarterfinals. I think these are two semifinal teams playing in the quarters. So what a matchup. I think it's hard, to your point, to go against France based on just the quality of players, and to your point, they maybe still haven't got out of third gear in terms of what they can actually do in the field because they don't have any weaknesses. Their biggest weaknesses will be if they can't continue to build and grow as a group when the games get harder. And you could say glass half full. They had a great battle fight grit against Paraguay. Glass half empty. It didn't look like they were as kind of settled in how they were going to kind of attack when they had no shots in the first half. That's not a great kind of output against a team like Paraguay. So I would say it's going to be France, tight one, but I have no problem with Morocco winning this game. I would love to see them shock the world. I think the way this World Cup has gone, I would love to see a little bit less of the superpowers and a new winner now, as somebody who doesn't have the U.S. in it and wanted the U.S. to win. I would still like more upsets. So I'm going to go with France reluctantly, but I'm going to have an asterisk that I want Morocco for the good of the game.
Yeah, I think I agree with you that this is probably the game of the quarterfinals. Just two really, really good teams that have a lot of good players across the pitch. As you said, I wouldn't be surprised if Morocco find a way to pull off a big upset and France are out in the quarterfinals. That wouldn't shock me, but I'm more leaning towards the fact that France will probably win this one. This is probably the stage where they finally kind of kick it into full gear and show off their full superpowers and maybe run away with this one. I'm taking France here. The other side of that semifinal bracket, or that semifinal game, Spain, Belgium. This is the one that the U.S. could have been in, but alas, they are not after losing 4-1 to Belgium. Spain versus Belgium. I have Spain here, but again, they've kind of struggled at times in this tournament, putting in goals, and that feels like we talk about. It feels like a similar talking point with Spain all the time, but they've certainly got some of the best collection of talent in this tournament, and I think they can go to the semifinals and get past Belgium here.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Spain. I agree. I think it's still always going to be a question for Spain if they can win this tournament, where the goals are going to come from. But man, they're problem solvers in the field, and they seem to have a little bit more of a higher repress in the game now phase. So I think they're very dangerous going forward in terms of that they can overwhelm you with possession, but they actually do want to go back and win the ball pretty quickly, which can just overwhelm teams. So yeah, Spain's my pick.
And you're getting a healthy by the day. You're getting a healthier and healthier Yamal. So the more he gets healthy, the better he's going to obviously play, and the more he's going to impact matches. I think Spain here, setting up Spain and France in the semifinals. The other side of the bracket, Norway, England. This one is so exciting for me. This is going to be a really fun one down in Miami. A Norway side that a lot of people had high expectations for because of the attacking talent they had. There were some questions on the defensive side maybe, but they have really shown out and been one of the more fun teams, especially with their fans in this tournament. Taking on an England side coming off an emotional game, a certainly draining game at altitude, and that'll be interesting, very interesting to see how England respond after that emotional game against Mexico. I think that's where Norway might have the edge, is that they didn't have that knock them down, drag them out, all-out fight that England certainly had in the last round.
Yep. I mean, it's going to be a great game. I'm going to pick England. I do think Holland is amazing. His stats are unbelievable. Every 14 touch a goal.
It's insane.
Blows my mind. But I just think England showed something against Mexico where they're hungry. They're ready for the fight. I think overall they've got a roster of battling, and they certainly have a global superstar forward of their own who has had a great tournament. So I think they match up well in terms of that position. And I think not everywhere else in the field, but the rest of the field, I think England, particularly with how Bellingham's playing, I think they're going to take that one.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards England, but I also like the France-Morocco game. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Norway pull off the upset and move on to the semifinals. And then the last game, Argentina-Switzerland. We saw Switzerland go through on penalties over Colombia last night. Argentina, as we said, coming from behind a 2-goal deficit in the final 15 minutes of that match. An emotional game for them. They've had a couple of emotional squeak-throughs here in the knockout stages, but they continue to just pile in the impressive performances. Argentina-Switzerland, I'm leaning towards Argentina, but like some of the other matches, I wouldn't be surprised if Switzerland are able to pull it out, because they've shown some really good team play in this tournament and been able to get some impressive results.
Yep, I'm with you too. I got to go to Argentina. I think Switzerland is the king of getting deep in tournaments, but when they get to the bigger guys, their lack of goals tends to kind of bite them a little bit, but they're unbelievable. Such big, athletic, strong guys defensively, and they find ways to advance in these World Cups consistently, which is really impressive.
Is it still the final down to you between France and Argentina again?
No, I'd picked England to win the tournament, so I got England in that final against France.
All right, I like it.
Is that right? Because is it England, Argentina, and then France, Spain? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, the next round from our picks would be France, Spain, and then England, Argentina in the semifinals. And obviously you have England and France going through. I think those are fair picks. This is the part of the stage. I know we've got the off days now, which is disappointing after 30 plus days of straight soccer. It's been really fun to watch and really fun to see a lot of people get on board. By the way, unfortunately, we've got a day off today.
And as we close out here, we got the Loons on the 22nd. It's right around the corner. I mean, as much as there's no soccer games today, which is like, whoa, but hey, we got a closed door scrimmage. And then we've got one next week. And then everything starts up again on the 22nd in Kansas City. So excited for that too. I mean, it's just been an amazing summer. And like I said, it's only going to get better now that we got 20 games, a big road game to kick us off in a place that we don't know what kind of Kansas City team there's going to be. Obviously, they've made some changes. There are going to be more signings, I think, before that game even. So it'll be a great test for us and our guys to go on the road, which we've done really well this year, and try to get some points and opportunity to kind of start on the right foot for the second half of the season.
Yeah, looking forward to the Loons getting back in action here in a couple weeks' time. Before we go, though, we got to give Manny a huge shout out to the staff at Minnesota United who put on the soccer celebration over the last couple of weeks out at PV Plaza outside Brits Pub. Incredible. Well done to everybody. I don't have the full list of names, unfortunately, but everybody knows who they are. They were incredible, putting on event after event, day after day in some at times brutal weather, but man, what an incredible events that they put on, and big shout out to them.
Yeah, so proud of the club, so proud of the investment by the club and the owners to kind of make sure the Twin Cities, not being a host city, still felt the energy and the vibe of the World Cup, and a ton of pride. Like I said, I have a ton of pride for the club. I have a ton of pride for the soccer community. And I get to live it day to day with some of these staff people that just go the extra mile to not just do an event and work it, but make it special for every single person that went out there.
Yeah, it was super fun to be out there for the couple shows that we did and be able to see as our voices are going here at the end of the show. See everybody come out and the events that they put on. It was fun to see. But Manny, it's been fun. We'll talk next week.
Yeah.
Previewing quarterfinals and finals and semifinals and finals, and looking forward to that. Looking forward to the rest of this World Cup that has been one of the best World Cups that we've seen in a long time. It's been really fun to see a lot of the drama, a lot of the teams step up in big ways, and looking forward to the future of it. And then MLS getting back in action next week for a couple of teams, and then the Loons back in action the week after that. Looking forward to it. Thanks to the production staff, Grace Dearson, Kyle Hayward, Evan Etler for putting this on every week. Loons fans, we'll talk to you next week.